Good morning. Well, we've made it to Thursday. We're always glad to be here. We may run a little short this morning. I got up a little later than I wanted to, and I'm going to Hollister to Cedar Valley Community Church, where Pastor Steve Youngblood has a gathering of pastors and teachers to encourage one another and to fellowship, pray. Uh, it's a monthly gathering. Uh, he calls it the cadre, which is a good word for what it is. A cadre usually describes the core of like-minded people, who start the revolution or have the coup that overthrows the tyrant, or the king. But the cadre is just, in its strictest sense, is just people who are like-minded and have the same purpose. And we're like-minded in that we're servants of Jesus Christ, and our only purpose is to glorify God, to give out the gospel to a lost and dying world, and to win as many people to Jesus as we can before the rapture. And that is the like-mindedness of this cadre. We want to see God glorified. We love Jesus. So anyway, I have to leave the house at 5 after to be there, so I need to leave myself time to get out of here. Chapter 12 of Zechariah, where we were yesterday. Chapter 12. We only made it a couple of verses because they're very burdensome verses. If you will, as we go along, you will understand the pun and the reference. Burdensome. I hope you had a great time at church last night. If you didn't go, shame on you. I saw Gayla for the first time last night. She played piano and sang with the praise band at, what they call it, a praise band, but it's just a regular band. They praise some, they sing some, but it's just a good band. Musicianship is good. I like playing with them. I didn't play with them last night, but I met them at Taco Bell after church. Velda and I were at our church last night at Victory Baptist Church, and Danny was gone to our mission at Souls Harbor, the homeless shelter, last night, and I did the Bible study, and I'll be preaching this Sunday. So that's what I do at Victory. I preach some and I teach some, and I just try to help out as I can. And of course use it as a base for my evangelistic work and our traveling ministry. Now, hope you had fun at church last night. Good morning, Kevin. God bless you. Chapter 12, Zechariah, beginning in verse 1. The burden of the word of the Lord of Israel. Saith the Lord, which stretcheth forth the heavens, and layeth the foundation of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling, and it sure is, unto all the people round about, and it sure is, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. We haven't gotten there yet. Judah and Jerusalem are not under siege, they're fighting a war. And there will come the point when they will be in the siege. As I told you, the participants are taking the field now. This could happen at any time. I've always believed that the Psalm 83 war and or the Magog war part 1 would be as a result of the Isaiah 17 war, where Damascus is completely destroyed. and it's a ruinous heap and will never be a city again. That's what Isaiah 17 predicts will happen. But you know what? That's never happened. Never in history. Matter of fact, Damascus is the oldest continuous city on the face of the earth. And it's never been destroyed. It's been conquered, been captured. Its population has gone up and down. So have the number of goats up and down. But it's never ceased to be a city, but it soon will. And every time I see it, the IDF attacking Syria, I'm just wondering if this is it. Because I'm kind of looking for that, because I feel like I'm sure that will happen. I'm not sure. I have the sense that it will happen right before the rapture. Good morning, Pastor Haroon. God bless you. Now, so we're going to pick up with verse 3, reading from verse 1 again, chapter 12, Zechariah, the burden of the word of the Lord of Israel. The burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, saith the Lord, which stretcheth forth the heavens and layeth the foundation of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. That speaks specifically toward the Great Tribulation. The church will not be here during the Great Tribulation. Anything we see or know about the Great Tribulation, we'll either learn now or we will watch from the mezzanine, because we'll be in heaven. God bless you, Margaret. It's good to see you on here today. Verse 3, chapter 12 of Zechariah. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. Not just the people round about Jerusalem. All people. I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. What's the difference between some and all? All means all. It means everybody, the whole world. We're getting close to that. But this little bitty country, 10, 12 million people, 10 million of them Jews. Good morning, Danny. For the first time in history, there are more Jews in Israel than there are in the rest of the world. It's still roughly half and half, but I think the fulcrum has passed the point, and it's tipping. It will be even more than that before the Great Tribulation, because of the rise of anti-Semitism upon the face of the earth. Not counting all the Arab states, just look at what's happening in other places. Russia, the home of the ancient pogroms. If you ever saw that movie Fiddler on the Roof, that's what they were running through. The army was always, the Cossacks were already, they were always chasing the Jews from one place to another. They came to Tevye's little village of Anatevya, which was in the country outside of Kiev, Ukraine, which is part of Russia, was part of Russia at that time, part of the Russian Empire. Ukraine also has a history of anti-Semitism. Oh, their president is a Jew. He's half Jewish. Yeah, that's all true. I'm just saying that there is a history of anti-Semitism in Ukraine, same as there was in Russia, because Ukraine used to be part of Russia. And that's where the mistreatment of the Jews took place in Fiddler on the Roof. It's just outside of Kiev, Ukraine. You can't believe what they say on TV, friends. You have to read. They try to change the history. They want you to believe things that never happened. They want you to believe that stuff happened that never did happen. Who owns the airwaves? You know, the Bible describes Satan as the prince of the power of the air. That's what the radio and TV is airwaves. I guess nowadays it's not broadcast anymore, or it's broadcast just a little bit. And that's done with radio waves and signals, but it's all still in the air. It's all still in the air. It has to get to that satellite and come back down to Earth for your cable company to show it. Anti-Semitism is all over the world. The United States has a history of anti-Semitism. Mexico, Cuba, you know, the voyage of the Dam, that liner, that German liner that had all the Jews on it. They wouldn't let the people off. In Mexico, they wouldn't let them off. In Cuba, they wouldn't let them even come into port in the United States, and they sent them back across the Atlantic. And nearly all of them died in concentration camps. There was only 1,000 of them compared to the millions who were killed, but they represented every Jew everywhere, hated, rejected, scorned. And in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people, because all people have, every country in the world almost has a history of anti-Semitism. They hate the Jew because he's a Jew. It came from the Catholic Church, and then it came from her whore daughters, the churches of the Reformation, the Lutherans, the Presbyterians, the Anglicans, all anti-Semites, down to the core. All taught amillennialism, still do to this day, that there's no millennium. It's just all allegory. It's poetic language, prophecy. That prophecy is just poetry, just some kind of pretty thing that they wrote down to scare people with. None of that is true. Every word in the Bible is true. It means exactly what it says. Christ will come and reign for 1,000 years. One of the reasons that the world hates the Jews is because of replacement theology. Following their mother whore, the Catholic Church, all the reformers, they also said that the church had replaced Israel. Well, it doesn't say that in the Bible. And it hasn't replaced Israel. So you see, replacement theology isn't. It ain't. What do you mean replacement theology ain't? It means it ain't theology. You see, theology is the study of what God has said and what he has done and what he's going to do. That's what theology is. Replacement, God hasn't replaced anybody with anything or anything with anybody. The Jews are still the Jews. The church is still the church. Israel is still Israel. And never the twain shall meet, except in the millennium and in the new heaven and in the new earth. Now the world hates the Jews. If I was a Jew, as I've told you many times, I would go to live in Israel today, because Israel is the only place on earth where a Jew will be defended simply because he's a Jew. It's the safest place for a Jew to be. I tell all of my Jewish friends, leave the United States, go to Israel and stay. They have followed that example in Europe. Jews are pouring out of France, Great Britain, Germany, Poland, Spain. What few there are in Spain. They didn't do too well during the Spanish Inquisition. 1492 was a great year. The King of Spain paid for Columbus to, quote, discover America, and he also threw all the Jews out of Spain the same year. You have to leave. Because, see, 80 years ago, 80, 90 years ago, the most sophisticated European country on the face of the earth slaughtered 6 million Jews at the very minimum. Killed 13 million people altogether. That included all of their homosexuals and people who had some kind of deformity, all of their mentally disabled people, all homosexuals, all drag queens, anybody who threatened public morality. Well, Germany's a great example of what not to do. Nazi Germany. It's you say it could never happen here. I don't believe that, because I don't believe that God still has his hand on us. I believe he removed his hand. We're under judgment right now. The election of Trump may be a reprieve. It might slow things down, but it's not going to stop the devil. Whoever's king or whoever's the president doesn't slow the devil down one way or the other. He just keeps working. We are in judgment. The living God is judging us for our sin. And there's really no way out of that as a nation. I've preached that to you for 3 years on these programs, all the way through John, especially through Jeremiah and Lamentations, through 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, through Joel, through Jude, now through Zechariah. The King is coming. He's coming for his church. The bridegroom is coming for his bride. And there will be 7 years of hell on earth. During that time, 2/3 of the Jews upon the earth will die under the hand of the Antichrist. See, Satan only killed 1/3 of the Jews during Hitler's reign. Now he's going to kill 2/3 of the Jews. God is going to supernaturally protect them in what is now the country of Jordan, but was then Ammon and Basra during this prophecy. But he's also going to kill more than 1/3 of the people on the entire earth. And then after that, in another wave of wrath, he is going to kill another 1/4 of all the people on earth. And what will the final tally be after the Battle of Armageddon? I don't know. But he's going to slay all the armies of the world that are gathered against him to keep him from returning. Satan is going to do everything he can to keep Jesus from coming back to earth. That is what the Battle of Armageddon is all about. But he will slay them all with the sword that cometh out of his mouth. He will throw the beast and the false prophet alive into the lake that burneth with fire and brimstone. 1,000 years later, he will throw Satan the devil into that same lake of fire. Satan will not rule in hell. Satan is not in hell now. Satan is alive and well on planet Earth, as old Hal Lindsey wrote. And that is absolutely true. And they're going to throw him into the lake of fire where the beast and the false prophet are, not were. After 1,000 years, they're still there being tormented. And the devil is thrown in, and then everyone from Cain, everyone the devil has led to hell, from Cain all the way up to that very day of judgment, they will be cast into the lake of fire in bodies that have been raised from the dead and are eternal. They will live forever in death, or they will be in conscious death forever, however you want to phrase it. But they will be alive in hell. They'll be tormented day and night forever and ever. And the smoke of their torment goeth up forever and ever, where the worm dieth not, and their fire is not quenched. So Satan will pay for what he's done to the whole world and not just to the Jews. See, he hates the Jews because God chose Abraham. He hates the Jews because they are God's people. He hates the Jews because God has promised them a posterity and a prosperity and a property. And he has done everything he can, Satan has, to prevent that from happening, but he will fail. Because the God he opposes is strong and mighty. See, Satan thinks that he's as strong as God, but he's not. He thinks he's like God, but he isn't. Satan doesn't believe. Danny and Charlie, I don't know if I said hi or not. He doesn't understand that he's a creative being. As Brother Aiken says, he's insane. And yes, he is. He's the very definition of madness. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. See, one day God will fight for Jerusalem. This is depicting the first Gog-Magog war, or the Psalm 83 war. It happens either right before, right at, or right after the rapture. That's how I time it. It'll look like Israel's going to be destroyed. And all of these countries, these strong countries that already have a military presence surrounding Israel, Iran, and all of her proxies, Turkey, Syria, and Russia. They're already there. They're ready to go to war. They've been there since the war against ISIS and the Syrian civil war. So Satan has taken a while to get his chess pieces on the board in the right place. But when it looks like Israel is not going to be able to do anything, and of course we withdraw our support of them, I don't know when it's going to happen, but see, those countries wouldn't do it if we were supporting Israel militarily. So those countries that are going to come against Israel, they must think that we're out of the game, whether we are or not. You don't have any idea what's going to happen to the United States in the next few years. Do I think Trump will be better for Israel than Biden? Of course. But we have no idea about God's timing. We don't know what he's going to do. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All people. All that burden themselves with it should be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. Anybody who's against Jerusalem is going to fall. They're going to be slapped. They're going to be hurt. Good morning, Vinny. Verse 4. In that day, saith the Lord, I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness. And I will open mine eyes upon the house of Judah, and will smite every horse of the people will blindness. And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength, and the Lord of hosts their God. That's what happens on the day that God will supernaturally save Israel after all of her friends have abandoned her. That happens at the very beginning of the tribulation. Then the prince that shall come, he'll make a covenant with Israel. He will confirm a covenant. He will give them a security guarantee. And this is what actually begins. This actually is what begins the great tribulation. This confirming of this peace agreement, this covenant. Daniel receives a prophecy. Gabriel explains it to him. Beginning in verse 24. 70 weeks are determined upon my people and upon the holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity. Daniel chapter 9, verse 24. And to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. To anoint the most holy. Back over here for a second. Verse 25, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem. Now that's what's happening during Zechariah's time. Ezra and Nehemiah have gone back. Joshua, the son of Josedek, and Zerubbabel have gone. And now Haggai and Zechariah are encouraging them to finish building the temple. This was the time of the return. The commandment to go forth was given in Ezra's day. That was the first return from the captivity where the priests came to try to reestablish this daily sacrifice and to start rebuilding the temple. That's when they built the altar and laid the foundation. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. That is 69 weeks, or 69 sevens. And the street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. And from that day to the day that Jesus rode in to Jerusalem on Palm Sunday was exactly 483 years. Not very good at math, but it worked out to where there was just 7 years left when he rode in on Palm Sunday. Then they rejected him as king. And as I read to you the other day, he set aside Israel for the time being. Where he said, behold, your house is left unto you desolate. You shall not see my face again until you shall say, Barak haba b'shem Adonai. Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Then after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. Jesus was cut off. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with the flood unto the end of the war of desolations are determined. That's exactly what happened. The Messiah was cut off, and the prince of the people that shall come, the people of the prince that shall come, the Romans, they came and they destroyed Jerusalem in 70 A.D. Then at the end times, there will rise up from that last empire, from Rome, another king. This is the one we call the beast, or the Antichrist. In verse 27, and he shall confirm the covenant with the many for 1 week, 7 years, 7 years. And in the midst of the week you shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, 3.5 years. That's what chapter 11 of Revelation was about. We spent several days on that, talking about how he will do away with the daily sacrifice, that he will seek to change times and laws, and that the Jews will realize that they've been had, and this guy that was guaranteeing their peace ain't the Messiah, but he's Satan the devil. And at that point, in chapter 12 of Revelation, God will supernaturally protect them in the wilderness. Good morning, Chris. For 3.5 years. And he shall confirm the covenant for many in 1 week. And in the midst of the week, 3.5 weeks, 3.5 years, he shall cease. He shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, which necessitates a temple. And for the overspreading of the abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation. That determined shall be poured upon the desolate. And that's what happens. That begins the Great Tribulation, the confirming of that covenant, after Israel believes they've been saved by a great Savior who stops the war. But it's God who defeats those armies in that day, which could happen any day now. Watch the truth movements in the Middle East. Look at the players. See if what I've told you is not so. The burden of the Lord for Israel, saith the Lord, which stretcheth forth the heavens, and layeth the foundation of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all people round about, when they shall be in the siege, both against Jerusalem and Judah, against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day, when all this happened, will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces. You come in Jerusalem, you're going to be cut in pieces. That's what happens to them now. But when Turkey and Russia and Iran and Syria all move together, Israel will need help, and nobody will help her. God will defeat these powers completely. We're talking about thousands upon thousands of people dead in this battle. Maybe hundreds of thousands of people dead in this battle. And the guy who negotiates the peace, he's going to rise up and be popular everywhere in the world. And he's actually the Antichrist. He's alive somewhere right now. I don't know who he is. You don't either. But these events I've just described to you could happen any day now. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces. Though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it, because I'm going to fight for it, God says. I'm going to fight for Jerusalem for my name's sake. I'm going to fight for Israel because I've chosen to place my name there, and it doesn't matter what the Jews decide. God's already decided it before the foundation of the world. In that day, saith the Lord, I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness, and I will open mine eyes upon the house of Israel, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness. And the governors, people who run things of Judah, shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength in the Lord of hosts, their God. See, whether they believe or not, they're going to recognize that only the power of God could have saved them. Now, what they do with this is very scary because they give their allegiance over to the Antichrist. We're going to stop there today because I have travels today and duties. We will resume this tomorrow in chapter 12 and talk some more about what will happen in, around, and to Israel, specifically Jerusalem. And some of this stuff could start. It could all explode at any minute. In a way, I hope it does, so that I don't have to continue this because I'll be in heaven. I will have met Jesus in the clouds, and the great tribulation will have begun, and I won't be here to see it. I'll be with the Lord. God bless you.